Hey class, my name is Jake Bryan, and today I'm going to be talking to you guys about the Lucifer effect, which is a concept created by Dr. Philip Zimbardo, and he's a social psychologist. So, with this effect, we're going to be talking about evil, which is a very overlooked subject in society. As you all know, Lucifer was once an angel in heaven with God who was uh, condemned to hell and sent to hell, and he became the devil. Um, so the whole point of this name is, um, and calling it the Lucifer effect, is to make us compare how an angel can become a devil when they seem to be so separate. So first, I want to ask you guys: are you capable of evil? Do you think you're capable of evil? Because evil is a product of three things: the situation we're in, something we call top-down dominance, and the fact that it hides in all of us. So, as Dr. Zimbardo quotes, we imagine a line between good and evil, as if there's something separating it, when in fact it's permeable, and it's something that we flow in between, bounce back from good to evil. So, with my first point of evil being situational, um, when someone or a group is in a position of control, this allows for abuse of power, also known as evil. And power can change you. I'm going to show you guys a few examples of how it can with an experiment called the Stanford Prison Experiment and a real life event that took place with the American soldiers in Abu Ghraib. But before I go into these events, I want to talk to you guys about something called the Cookie Monster study, which is where three people in multiple different groups were, one of them was given a leadership role, and they were all given 4 cookies. They'd each eat one, and there'd be 1 cookie left over, and they would have to figure out who would eat the last cookie. 2/3 of the time, it'd be the person in the position of power, because of a sense of entitlement. So that just kind of gives you a little taste of how power can affect your thinking. So here's a quick preview of the Stanford Prison Experiment. Dr. Philip Zimbardo wanted to see how people work in a prison setting and understand it better. And Abu Ghraib was an actual prison run by American soldiers during our war with Iraq. So there's some graphic content with these pictures, but I'm going to show you guys actual footage of what happened during the Stanford Prison Experiment and Abu Ghraib. So we have someone being humiliated with a bag over their face. It's a psychological tactic to ensure control over them by blinding them. And then we have physical punishment here as another tactic of power. And in Abu Ghraib, this man was told that if he moved, these wires attached to his fingers would electrocute him to death, when in fact there was nothing deadly about this. It was just a prank by the guards. So you have to ask, why are people doing these things? Why are people abusing their power? Um, you have someone over a dead body. We have a pile of naked bodies here with people smiling and their thumbs up as if it's positive happening. Really sickening pictures. So you can see the use of sadistic punishment and control, which pretty much proves that, when you're given power, it's easy to abuse and it leads to evil. This brings me on to my next point of, like how this evil comes about. And it works in something called a top-down fashion, which is pretty much how power at the top will affect what happens underneath it and the people underneath it. So imagine like with this waterfall, the water that's at the top, if they're the power, the water that trickles down is whatever's in that power at the water at the top is going to affect the water at the bottom. And there's even something called a dominance hierarchy, which is where people compete for scarce resources. They'll either team up or actually physically compete for them, which we see in examples of the Stanford Prison Experiment and Abu Ghraib. And here's a map or a picture of the top-down dominance. And supervision is necessary whenever there's power, just to ensure that people are doing the right thing, because people can get chaotic, like in the Stanford Prison Experiment and Abu Ghraib. Without intervention, you can see that even the government of Canada, with this quote here, they thought that supervision should have been necessary. And this brings me on to my third point, that evil hides in everyone. And evil hides in everyone because of one thing in particular. We all have an ego. And it's very common, especially in America, to have an inflated sense of self. And you can see in the study done by Kate Fellhaber that 80% of drivers consider themselves to be above average. This is statistically impossible because not 80% of drivers are actually above average. The number is much, much lower than that. And you see something similar happening when people are considering themselves and rating themselves with popularity and even cognitive abilities. So this inflated sense of self can make us kind of ignorant to evil and our capabilities of it. Another thing that promotes evil that we're all capable of is being passive. In an event that happened in Richmond, California, a 15-year-old girl was assaulted and raped for 30 or so minutes, and there were 20 witnesses who just stood and watched. Some people were reported to just have been laughing or recording, and no one really took this event seriously. In one study by Darley and Latine, they wanted to find out more about this phenomenon of inaction. And so they brought people in for this experiment to do a questionnaire, and they'd pour smoke into the room while they were taking this questionnaire. And they found that if people were present, they were less likely to report the smoke that poured into the room. Even though it's something dangerous, they were 10% of the time likely to report it. Whereas if they were alone, 70% of the time, or 75% of the time, they would report it. So in summary, we all contain both good and evil, and it's something permeable. Evil is dependent on situational. It starts on the top, and anyone is capable of it. Thank you for listening, guys.